Anniversary. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is October 15th, 2025. It is a Wednesday. There was no show yesterday, which was the 6-year anniversary of Nothing Personal. And every year on my birthday, my mother is happy to tell me the story of my birthday. And on my kid's birthday, I always want to tell them, do you want to know the story of the day you were born? And of course, my answer is no, I'm okay. And my kids would always say the same thing. And yet there's great stories that you think they'd be interested in. I have myriad stories about the day Nothing Personal was born. And I can only imagine when I call Coca and wish him a happy anniversary, tell him how much I love him, how much I appreciate him. Hey, do you want to hear the story of the first day of Nothing Personal? And Coca's like, no, because I was there. So it's totally different than anybody's birth date. I was thinking about the show yesterday a lot while not doing it. I was thinking about the show as I was sitting with my daughter, Coca, and I was thinking about how the show has evolved. So I did something that I'm telling you about now during the show live on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. I went back and I listened to show number 1. Not all of it, just like a couple minutes back on October 14th of 2019. Man, we've come a long way. And I was thinking to myself, where will we be in 6 years, which will be October 14th of 2031? Because we're on show number 1,366. Will we be on show 2,700? How will it work? Will we be on show 3,000? I want to get right to something, Coca, because this is what we do. Thank you again. Let me take 1 minute to remind everyone, if you think I don't want to hear from you, you're wrong. If you think I'm not interested in the love and the support, you're totally wrong. I appreciate the number of people who've reached out, who I don't know, who I do know, who say things to me, who have experiences. And I haven't really spoken exactly about what's happening because it is private, but for now, it's just private. But people speculate, and they just speculate with care. It's not speculate with, oh, let's be Pablo Torre and find out. It's speculate with the amount of love that we all feel. So thank you. And I say that from the bottom of my heart. Each day is difficult, very difficult. And I want it to be better for her. I want it to be better for my other kids. I want it to be better for everybody. And it is not, but one day we will see. So thank you. We will keep going. We will keep going. Let's go to right now, Coca, please. I want to go to the Dodger game. I've made no secret of the fact that I'm rooting for the Brewers. I love Milwaukee. I love the Brewers. I want them to beat the Dodgers. I want Christian Yelich to get a ring. The Dodgers already have a ring or two. I love Seattle. I want Ichiro to be a part of a World Series winning team, even if he's not on the active roster. I want the people in Seattle to get a ring, but I also love Toronto. So there's a lot of love, and having Vladimir Guerrero's family have a ring, there's just so much upside anywhere I look other than the Dodgers getting another ring. And I'm watching these series, and as a former president, the only thing I'm thinking about is you work your ass off to get home field advantage. You want to have a good regular season. You want to draw crowds. You want to reward your fans with postseason games. You want to make money now in the LCS. As you get later in the LCS, teams are really making a lot of playoff money. These series have to go longer in order for the teams to really cash in for themselves, because the league, the umpires, the players make the early game money. But you work all year for something. And in the league championship series in Major League Baseball, home teams are 0-4. Seattle went in Toronto and won 2. LA went into Milwaukee and won 2. And now they get to go home with a chance to clinch it because they each get 3 games. It's 2-3-2 in Major League Baseball. So there'll be 3 games in Seattle, and all Seattle has to do is win the series, win 2 out of 3, and they're going to the World Series. The Dodgers go back to Chavez Ravine. All they have to do is win 2 out of 3, and they will go back to the World Series. Last night, I was watching the game. It's a must-win for the home team in Game 2 when you lose Game 1. It's not unlike basketball. We have the stat for baseball, Coca, and I don't know what it is in basketball, but I would assume when the home team loses the first 2 in the NBA in a 7-game series, they're going to have a hard time winning the series. In baseball, you have an 11% chance. I think home teams that lose the first 2 games at home are like 3-28, 3-25, just something just horrific. It was the 96 Yankees. It was the 86 Mets were 2 of the teams who have done it. No one remembers that 86 Mets, do they? But in any case, I'm watching the game, and it's a must-win. And I know my pick would have been for the Brewers to win Game 2 with Peralta. I didn't have a pick of the day for that. But I would have had Peralta beating Yamamoto because the Brewers have come too far. Franchise record, 97 wins. Number 1 seed. Best team in baseball during the regular season. You can't lose Game 2. First batter, Jackson Chourio. Home run, leadoff, first pitch, 1-0, bottom 1 after Peralta doesn't give up runs in the top of the first. And you're thinking you're off. You're off and running. As Steve Ballmer likes to say, you're off to the races, when he would refer to Kawhi and Aspiration after introducing them to each other. But the problem is Yamamoto didn't give up another run. Yamamoto did not give up the ball the rest of the game. The 12-year, $325 million pitcher, which no team had a chance to get other than the Dodgers, more on that in a minute, throws a complete game. There hadn't been a complete game in 8 years in the postseason. The last one was Justin Verlander in 2017 for the Trash Can Bangers. I think he was on the Trash Can Bangers. God, that would have been so good if I had that exactly off the top of my head, Coca. And I could have gone straight through without pausing and just leaving it at that. And people saying, wait, what team is that? Oh, yeah, is that the Astros? Did they win it that year? Oh, yeah. Evan Drellick, the book, Winning Fixes Everything. I would have had it all nailed. And instead, I didn't. That's how I'm rolling this morning on a Wednesday in the middle of October, when I'm more tired than I would normally be. Last night, Coca, side note, will you take the graphics off the screen? I got to tell one quick story about last night, which is quite crazy. So last night, I finished watching the Dodgers and the Brewers game. So I'm thinking, all right, the night before, I was up the entire night. I couldn't sleep a minute. So what am I going to do after that game? And I had a thought. And the thought was, let's not start a movie and try to get through it and try to get ahead of the reviews and try to see if you can watch an extra movie. Let's not read about any health issues and how to fix things that are unfixable and how to figure out what you're going to do, where you're going to do it. Let's just, by chance, get into bed. So it's about 11:42 exact, because my clocks are all in military time. So it was 23:42. I get into bed and I'm thinking, all right, I've got till 5:40. I have a chance right now for 5 hours and 58 minutes. And what proceeded to happen, Coca, and I'm solo, I'm alone in my apartment, and I didn't call the police. I didn't go to the emergency room. I didn't reach out to you, Coke. I didn't do anything. I had a 4-hour panic attack, and I had no idea what to do. I thought for sure this was the one where I was going to die. And so I'm switching positions. I think I've got some respiratory issues. I've got the pulse oximeter on my finger, Coca. I'm taking my temperature. You would not have believed what happened to me last night. So the time is just passing and passing and passing. And the last time I looked at the clock was 3:38. And then it was all of a sudden 4:20 and I was up. That actually happened. I haven't had that before. I've had panic attacks, anxiety attacks, and you speak to people about it and you try to get help. I encourage everyone to get help. But last night was a doozy, Coca. And was it about what's happening in my personal life, my professional life? Was it about, I don't know, getting a tattoo today? I don't know what it was about, but it made me, it sucked, is what I would say. All right, let's get back to the Dodger game. I wasn't going to tell anybody that, but thank you, Coca. You're very welcome. I wanted to tell people that you're not alone if you're having those. Okay, so Churio hits a home run. Yamamoto pitches a complete game. The Dodgers offense without Shohei Ohtani is still good enough to score 5 runs. Ohtani, by the way, has been horrific. Horrific. He's going to pitch game 4, which we told you he was going to pitch. We told you Glasnow would pitch game 3. We set the rotation for you before it was announced because that's what any team would do with those pitchers who the Dodgers have. Ohtani is DHing, leading off, and he can't get a hit. He's 2 for his last 24 and 5 for 34 in the postseason. The 2 home runs against the Reds, how long ago does that seem to you? Like a year ago. And so the question is, does it matter? And it brought me back to the Dodgers losing to the Diamondbacks in a short series when Betts and Freeman had those mini slumps over like 3 games, and all of a sudden the Dodgers were out of the playoffs back in 23. The Dodgers are now built. Andrew Friedman, the Hall of Fame president of baseball operations, took all the money. Did you see, by the way, Mark Walter in the front row in Milwaukee? Did you also see Teoscar Hernandez and his wife leaving the Pfister because of ghosts? We've told you the ghost story of the Pfister in Milwaukee. You don't want to be in the wrong set of elevators there. That's for damn sure. So what Andrew Friedman did with all the money he has and why we're so angry with the Dodgers situation as a small revenue team is they're able to build something that withstands a 5 for 34 from your best hitter. That doesn't happen often. We've actually not seen it. The reason why this series is so interesting, Jeff Passan wrote an article about it. It's something that we've talked about many times on this show, and I will remind you. The Brewers versus the Dodgers is a really big deal in the League Championship Series because we're heading into a collective bargaining negotiation. I told you before the series started, before the article came out, that you have an issue. The union is rooting very hard for the Brewers to not win. It can't be that owners believe that having the 22nd highest payroll can help you win. The owners are very concerned if the Dodgers win because they're concerned there will be a block of 8 teams who will say that we are not going to continue like this, where the Dodgers and teams like it are the only teams that have an opportunity. The commissioner's office then points out to teams, you could always be the Mets. Spending the amount of money does not guarantee. You've got to spend it and you've got to be smart. And teams say, we are smart. We can't spend that amount of money. And baseball says, but you're in the postseason. So the two sides are fighting against each other, the union and the commissioner's office. And they're watching this series play out. And they can look at stats. They can look at the depth of the roster. You may even have a circumstance where the union will sit at a table and say, hey, I got to tell you, let's look at a player like Tommy Edman as a great example. Tommy Edman, the way he's paid would be the 3rd highest paid Brewer. He's the 13th highest paid Dodger. When you think about Tommy Edman, he's a great role player on a great team. Yes, he won the MVP of the LCS last year, but that's if you get hot for, 4 to 7 games. The fact is, Tommy Edman is a luxury that every team would like to have and only few teams can afford. You look at the depth of the rotation that we talked about over the year with the Dodgers. We talked about last year the Dodgers winning the World Series with a hurt rotation, yet with a dominant bullpen and lineup. We talked about the fact that Clayton Kershaw doesn't even get a start after a hot second half of the season because there's no room for him in the Dodgers rotation. We talk about the fact that when the Dodgers decide they're going to get a player like Yamamoto, they can offer $50 million to his Japanese team and still give him $325 million like it's a Tuesday. We talk about the fact that they can secrete players on the injured list in a way that Billy Epler must have night terrors about as they rest players during the season in their own sort of rule-breaking load management. You know what I'm talking about, LA. You know very well what I'm talking about. But the thing that's going to come up during collective bargaining is that you're going to have two groups talking about this series. And what they're going to talk about is it an outlier or is it indicative of the economic system? Is it intelligence or is it indicative of the economic system? Is it simple, dumb luck? Or is it indicative of the economic system? And the argument will not have an answer, which is the worst type of argument, which is the type of arguments that I'm having right now with our healthcare system, with everything that's going on personally, is what do you do when there's no answer? Do you look to the clergy? Do you look to your spiritual side and figure out how to get in touch with Aaron Rodgers to see if maybe going to Peru is the answer? What do you do when there is a systemic problem that actually is the fabric of the essence of our being? That is a philosophical conundrum that businesses will never acknowledge, yet religions and life always acknowledge. I've been thinking about that so much, Coca, because can this be changed? Will the salary cap in baseball definitionally change those who are able to win and those who are not? It got me thinking about football. It got me thinking about basketball, the sports that do have a salary cap, the sports that have as many dynasties as baseball, the sports that have as many crappy teams as baseball. I mean, you've got the Jets in the NFL. It can't be that they're this bad for this long. You've got the Charlotte team in the NBA. It just can't be. There's something else going on. And as we're sitting, running a team for all those years, looking at teams who are more successful while looking at our own one ring, we would always want to blame the economic system, because why would we ever look inward? It would make no sense for our own professional survival to say, no, we're not doing this right. Let's change how we do it. And that's exactly what is going to happen with this Brewers-Dodgers series. There will be this fight of who's right, who's wrong, and how do we change how we just examine our own existence. It's going to be a fight, folks. It's going to be a fight. A couple other notes about the Dodgers-Brewers while I have you. I didn't get to talk yesterday. Some things we let go, other things we don't. Game 1 yesterday had 2 days ago, had that unassisted double play. I want to make sure that you are thinking about that every day for this entire month. when there is a grand slam about to be hit by Max Muncy. It goes off the glove of the center fielder, hits the wall, back in the glove. Teoscar Hernandez gets forced out at home. Will Smith never runs from second and gets forced out at third base. Double play, no run score. It was an 8-6-2, 2 unassisted, because the center fielder throws it to the shortstop, throws it to the catcher steps on home plate. That's 8-6-2. Then the Contreras, for whatever reason, runs to third base, steps on third. That becomes 2 unassisted. Those were the 2 outs. Everybody from Brian Anderson, who called the game, to fans, everyone was saying, what's happening? It was put on replay. The players didn't really know. I will never forget Kike Hernandez. You know you did this. You were running to your dugout. You were focused on review that, review that, review that. You were on the on-deck circle. You know you did it. That's not what the focus should have been. So I want to remind all of the players out there and all of the parents who yell at their kids in Little League because you assume they're going to be big leaguers. When there is bases loaded, the only time you don't move is on an infield fly, when the umpire raises his hand and calls the infield fly roll. Other than that, you got to be doing stuff during a play. So when there's a fly ball to center field and you're on third base, Teoscar Hernandez goes halfway. No, you stand on the base. When the player either catches it or doesn't catch it, but you see the ball hit the glove, you then leave third base and go home when the bases are loaded. Because if there's a catch and you can't see the umpire calling out or safe, if there's a catch, you're on third. After the catch, you tag and you're score. If there's no catch and the umpire's safe, but you don't see the umpire call the safe call, you're standing on third base, there are no catches made, you then run home. Either way, you stand on the base when it is a deep fly ball like that, and then go home. Second base, there are examples where you would go halfway, depending on your read of the ball. When there is a fly ball like what this was, where the center fielder is going back, and you can get dekes from time to time, but the center fielder is going back, you're looking up, he's looking up, you're Will Smith, you're on second base, you are deciding, am I tagging? Is it caught? What's my exact plan? And when there are bases loaded, you have coordinated with the guy on first. If there's a deep fly ball and the guy on first is trying to advance a base and you're on second base and you don't advance, your 2 people can't occupy the same base. You have a problem. Will Smith has to be catching the eyes of the third base coach. The third base coach has double duty as he's dealing with the guy in third and the guy in second. Or Will Smith can just look out to the outfield. But either way, what you can't be doing is standing on second base, which is what he did. It was the craziest play, and I made a mistake because I called everyone I knew, and I said, I've never seen an 8-6-2. It's never happened ever. And God, I love the internet. An 8-6-2 did happen in 2004. Totally different, sort of, because it was still a double play. An 8-6-2 double play. It was an 8-6-2, 2 unassisted, but it was involving Todd Walker and Sammy Sosa with the Cubs. So thank you for that. So that happened in game 1. The other thing on this Dodgers series, and when you're building a baseball team and you all make fun of me for saying pitching wins, have you noticed that Snell and Yamamoto have gone 8+ innings? Have you noticed that the Brewers cannot get even runners in scoring position? Maybe one day people will realize, and I didn't come up with this, I'm not a brilliant baseball executive, you need pitching to win. The other series is a true bizarre series, Coca. If your best players don't hit and your pitchers don't pitch, you're not going to win against anybody. Now, it feels like the Mariners are just crushing the Blue Jays. But actually, the Blue Jays have crushed themselves. And there's not a whole lot you can do. I remember talking to our GM about slumps that players would have. I remember talking to executives at owners' meetings. We're talking about how do we change certain things. It goes back to what we talked about to start the show, Coca. How do you change things that you know intuitively that you cannot control? Because in a room full of ego, everyone's trying to change everything. Everyone's trying to control everything. And it is awe-inspiring when there is something that we all can't control, watching everyone retreat into their corners trying to figure out a way to control it. How do we game the system to get back control? That's how the damn shift was born, Coca. When teams said, all right, how do we work within the rules to change our odds? So the Blue Jays have basically, if you think about it, Barger, Kirk, Vladimir, Springer are 3 for 28. I mean, that's 4/9 of your lineup. And those are the guys that have to produce. Vladimir's 0 for 7. It happens. It actually happens. Kirk is 1 for 7 in 2 games. It happens. Addison Barger, who is a threat in that lineup, 0 for 6. It happens. What doesn't happen when you have a slump like that and you're facing a team like the Mariners, who every day have a starting pitcher who can deal, and every day has a lineup that is deep and that can hurt you from 1 to 9. If you're not performing and you're not throwing, pitching, hitting, you're going to lose. It really is that simple. So the Mariners go back to Seattle. They are 54 defensive outs away from their first World Series, which is, I couldn't be more excited for them, because the feeling for those fans when you go to your World Series, or you know your team is in the World Series and they have a chance to win it, that's something. Tonight is game 3. There's only a couple more days, Coca, of 2 games. Do you remember back last week when we had our last 4-game day, when there were 4 playoff games? Now we have very few days left. I think we have 2 days left of 2 games. And then we're down to 1 game, and then it's done super quickly, like within 2 weeks. So please watch the playoffs. Enjoy it while you can. Thursday and Friday are the final. Oh, no, Monday could be a 2-gamer. Yeah, if you think Mariners Blue Jays is going 7. Side note here, Coca. Major League Baseball cannot have 2 sweeps in the LCS. You have a chance of 14 games in the LCS, 7 in the World Series. That's 21 games over 3 series. When you're negotiating TV deals, you are telling your networks, and the networks are expecting, they want to see out of the total of 21 games for those 3 series, there needs to be, in theory, at a minimum, I'm talking about a minimum, you want 16. That's 2 5s and a 6. If you end up with 2 4s, that's 8. You can't get to 16. There's only 7 games left possible in the World Series. Total despondency. Here's my imitation, Coca, of Rob Manfred walking into the umpire's room, which he would never do because he's the commissioner now, prior to these game 3s that are taking place. Gentlemen, we have a situation here. We're going to need the Blue Jays and the Brewers to win a couple games. Nah, that never happens. Never. Ever. Let's pick the game, Coca. I don't know if you've noticed this, but I am HOTTT. My picks have been chef's kiss, spot on, analysis, predictions, understanding the flow of the series. I don't lose. I had the Brewers as underdogs. How smart was I to take the Brewers in game 1 over Blake Snell? That was like a brilliant pick from Monday. Don't kid yourself. The Blue Jays with their offense in game 1 over a Mariners team, exhausted. I mean, simple. They got to come back and win game 2. They're not going to lose 2 games to Seattle at home. It's absurd. They're one of the best home teams in all of baseball. Nailed it. We had the Brewers over the Dodgers, and we had the Blue Jays over the Mariners. I don't know what your thought is, but when I say up, obviously go down. We are 128 and 133 after those 2 ass picks. Now I don't know what to do. The Mariners, it's Shane Bieber who's not a number one. He's not a number two. He's not a number three. I'm sorry, Toronto. It's a nice addition, but he's a 5. That's what he is. Now, you may not realize this, but do you know who's going for the Mariners? Yeah, Kirby. Have you watched him pitch? He's not their best. He's better than what? 22 teams trot out there in the 2-hole? For sure. And for whatever reason, Kirby's only minus 137 over Bieber. But you can't have the Blue Jays lose and go down 3-0. Series over. Nobody comes back from being down 3-0. Ever. Unless you're the 2004 Boston Red Sox. One team. That's it. And they made a whole damn documentary about it. One team. You lose this game, done. So we went from what I thought would be a game 7 for the Blue Jays, which would be game 2 at home when you've lost game 1. Now it's really a game 7 in a game 3. Same thing for the Brewers on Thursday. How can you not pick the Blue Jays? Are they going to get swept by the Mariners? It's absurd. Mariners minus 137 over the Blue Jays. That's my pick of the day, Coca. Because I want to take the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays can't lose this game. So I got to Costanza it. That's why we're taking the Mariners. That's the official pick of the day. Let's go to the review, Coca. I don't know why I watched a documentary about someone who died young. That seems to be the worst plan of all time, but I did. John Candy, I like me. I love John Candy. I don't like him. I love him. If you don't know who John Candy is, I had Coca. Was this you? Could you please tell me? Did you confuse John Candy and Chris Farley? Was that you or someone else? That may have been. It wasn't you. Then it was someone else who's young in my life, who when I said that I was going to watch John Candy, I Like Me, the question was, oh, is that the guy from Tommy Boy? I almost plotzed right there, which would have been horrible, though there would have been great coverage by doctors and nurses. But it was a full, are you serious? John Candy is a legend, a Canadian legend. Uncle Buck, is that your favorite John Candy movie? No, not mine either. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles? God, that's got to be a top 5. Stripes? You bet your bippy. I haven't said that in a long time. That felt good to say that. Dan hates when I say that. That's a note I got from Levitard. Levitard is probably the top producer with the top ear of anyone in this business. David, I think you're saying bet your bippy too much. And so I totally stopped saying it. I can take the note. I can take anything that Coca says or Levitard says or Mike Ryan or any of the great people at Meadowlark, and I will do it. I don't know why I just said it, because I miss it. This is a documentary done where his children are interviewed. Spoiler alert, John Candy died young with young kids. John Candy was overweight. John Candy drank. John Candy smoked. John Candy lived. And then John Candy died. And it is another example of a horrific loss for all of us because of what he didn't do during the course of his career that he could have, when his career could have been 30 more years. Think about this for 1 second. John Candy and his past, and I learned in this documentary about stuff in Canada, I did not ever focus on the fact that John Candy was part of Second City TV, and I sort of knew it, but never really thought about it in that way. I didn't understand his family life. I didn't realize that his whole life was informed by the death of his own father. And Tom Hanks and John Candy were in Splash together. Tom Hanks' son incidentally directed this, and Tom Hanks is interviewed, quite obviously he would be. And the stories told about John Candy during this movie, you can't leave it and not love him. So they called it I Like Me because you'll see in the movie, but I would have preferred We Love Him. John Candy, you should watch it. Tomorrow we're doing a show and we're going to review Legends of the Fall. Coke, I've not watched it. Again, I've watched that movie so many times that I could recite lines from it. Brad Pitt, Anthony Hopkins, Aidan Quinn, etc. But that is a movie in my top 100. We will review that tomorrow on the show. There was another baseball move that has gotten quite a bit of attention yesterday, and Major League Baseball does not enjoy at all when anything gets attention during the playoffs other than the playoffs. But there was a long letter released by the Padres manager, Mike Shildt, resigning from his job. And I was ready to do a segment on this, and I'm going to right now, because you know my view of these resignations, which is they come approximately a millisecond prior to a firing. The Padres have stepped all over themselves trying to tell you that Mike Shildt stepped down, that he was not let go, that it was his decision. Mike Shildt released a full-page letter telling you how much he's tired, he wants to go home, it takes a toll, the season's hard. He loves his players, he loves his fans, he loves the team, he loves the city, loves the stadium, can't wait for them to win a World Series championship, yada, yada, yada. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, they're doing a pretty good job here. AJ Preller does an interview talking about death threats that Mike Shildt has gotten. Side note, if you're giving a death threat to someone in sports, the problem is you. I have, if you're asking, Coca, I have had multiple death threats during my career, and you take every one of them seriously. You get MLB security involved, the Department of Investigations gets involved, your own resident security agent gets involved. Shout out to Big John Anderson, whose birthday's coming up in a couple days, who was in charge of our security. And it impacts family and friends more than yourself, because you can't let that impact you. You cannot let a death threat change your life and change the way you act. You just can't do it. But things started coming out like, oh, Mike Shildt really had it hard. That's why he stepped down as manager. But then all of a sudden, there was a different narrative. And articles were coming out by different members of the media. Hey, his coaching staff didn't really like him. The reason he was let go from the Cardinals is his bad relationship with support staff. And there was a bit of sullying going on. A few leaks from hither and yonder about everything maybe not being so great in San Diego with him as your manager. And I smiled. I didn't smile because I want coaches to be mistreated, unless you're the catching instructor for the Marlins in 06, in which case I'm totally fine with you being fired and never getting another job. I can't believe we were forced to hire Gary Tuck in 2006, Coca. I can't believe that Joe Girardi walked in as a first-time manager and said, you must hire Mike Harkey, who just was fired by the Yankees, and Gary Tuck. I can't even believe it, and I can't believe we said yes. I wanted to fire Gary Tuck within a second. Girardi was like 5 seconds. Gary Tuck was 1 second. An absolute miserable person as a coach, maybe a great father, great person, great human being. No opinion, don't know him, haven't heard from him, never will, fine. Why was I even talking about that? Oh, because it's important for the staff to support the coach and the manager, for the manager to be supportive of the staff, except what we do as executives is sometimes we get in the way and we force the manager to have certain members of the staff, or we fire members of the staff in order to send a message to the manager. I'll show you, we're going to fire your bench coach or your pitching coach. It's so ridiculous. It's not mentioned in the Expos documentary, which is coming out in 6 days. When we fired Felipe Alou, what's not mentioned is we had fired Louis Pujols prior. Like that would really get the troops going. Coca, can you find out, am I remembering that wrong? I got to call Jim Beattie. Did we fire Pujols with Alou, or did we fire Pujols prior to Alou? I don't know if you can even find that on the Intergoogle these days. Although, wait a minute, you can find anything. Jack, Coca, if you can find out when in 2000 it must have been, I would imagine that Louis Pujols got fired. May have been 2001, but I think it was 2000. I don't know where you're going to find it, Coca. So anyway, the relationship between managers and coaches, and managers, coaches, and front office is an interesting one, that is fraught with landmines because there are power plays that are made left and right. Why, after Mike Shildt releases a full-page letter, when his GM A.J. Preller comes out to talk about the love, are the stories about the other stuff? Who's got the incentive to leak different things? Mike Shildt wants to absolutely go down as, hey, I love it here. I love San Diego. They love me. Everything's fine. I just want to go home. A.J. Preller is more than fine with the narrative of he was tired. It's a great job. We're going to hire someone amazing. We move on. So rare when you've got the fired person and the team, the person who resigned and the team, who both are perfectly okay with the narrative. Who does that leave? Does that leave players? Players aren't going to leak stuff. They don't care. Believe me. There's not one Padre player who's waking up today saying, oh my God, there's no Mike Shildt. Believe me, they're good. They're going to be fine. What about his coaches who are in danger of, when a new manager is named, to not being retained? You think they're motivated to get the little word out that, hey, there was a lot more going on here? Here's a little nugget about coaches that I learned. They've got connections with the media. They are sources for media in a way that it never occurred to me. They leak stuff. They finagle angles. It is insanity what a first base coach will do. It's just, you can't even believe it. And when you're told it, you don't believe it. Then when you research it and you find out that it's true, you're like shocked. So I wasn't surprised at all that there is two sides to the Shildt stepping down, being fired, being removed. It certainly seems as though the Padres had a problem. It seems as though Shildt may not have been tired. So A.J. Preller had no choice but to come out and say, hey, and this is a quote from A.J. Preller, I think it's a really attractive job. You've got 3.5 million fans coming to the ballpark year in and year out. Good atmosphere as there is in the game. AJ, hint when you're hiring managers, and grant you, if I look at the managers you've hired, you're as bad as I am. So we are kindred spirits. Do you know how often managers, when I've interviewed them, have said, hey, what's your attendance? 0. There's 30 jobs, AJ. Go get yourself a manager because anybody will manage anywhere. Oh, I think your team's not good enough. I'm always reminded of the great Ozzie Guillen. Ozzie, you want to know who we're going after? Nope. Do you want to hear about some free agent signings? Nope. What about the fact that our payroll may go down after 2012? Nope. Ozzie, are you just not caring? He's like, just give me any 25 guys you want. He learned from Jack McKeon. Jack McKeon didn't care. Happy to be the manager. But by the way, David, you can't win the Kentucky Derby with a bunch of donkeys. But go ahead and hire and sign donkeys if you want. Coming out and actually specifically saying that it's a really attractive job because of the fans is funny to me. All right, Coca gave me an answer. It was July of 2000 that we fired the pitching coach and bench coach. We made Jim Beattie say this quote. Jim Beattie, we don't want to stand here and place blame for things that have gone wrong. We just wanted to make some changes to help keep things positive in the second half to push the team forward. Jim Beattie was so despondent, Coca, that he had to say that. We had been in the game starting December of 1999. And we fired the pitching coach and bench coach in July of 2000. It was like 3 months into my first season. And we're like, wait a minute, we don't seem to be winning a lot of games here. Why is that? Don't be ridiculous. I can't imagine why Jeremy Powell and Mike Thurman aren't winning more games. This can't be right. What were we, Coca? We were 25 and what? 25 and 53? Yikes. After we made those changes? That's funny. That's terrible. Yeah, there were There was some Felipe Alou was so angry. The reason, just FYI, we fired Bobby Cuellar, the pitching coach. Now I'm talking and thinking about the Expos because this movie's coming out the 21st. So I've really thought so much about the Expos. But we fired the pitching coach because our view was it can't be that that our pitching's this bad. Didn't we have Coca? I think we traded. We had signed Graham Lloyd. I think we traded for Hideki Irabu from the Yankees prior to the 2000 season. I think he was with us all of 2000, but I may be getting my years wrong. But our pitching was just not performing. So we fired the pitching coach. But that wasn't the big one. The big one, because Felipe Alou was fine with Bobby Cuellar being fired. He'll not admit that, but he was fine. But firing Louis Pujols, that made him crazy. He was done after that. And we fired him purposefully to let Felipe Alou know that he was not the king anymore. Because when he was the manager before we got there, under the previous ownership, Felipe Alou was basically the superstar in Montreal. Whatever Felipe Alou wanted, he got. And our view was, we're going to show him, we'll fire his bench coach. Well, of course, that was ridiculous. You got to fire the manager. So we did that. And then we won a World Series after we fired the manager after that. The thing about firing coaches is that you think it's going to work, and then it works one time in your career, and you assume it'll work every time. I wonder whether the Tennessee Titans, and they fired Brian Callahan, and they said, is he of Callahan Auto Parts? And they said, now we figured it out. We've gone through 2 head coaches. We've gone through 2 general managers since the end of 2022, but by golly, we've got it. You've got right now Amy Adams, who is being sullied as a terrible owner, looking at herself in the mirror and saying, if we fire Brian Callahan right now, after not even 2 years, we are a 1-5 football team. We are a team that we expected to be able to win 5 games, and now we're on track to win 3. We have got to change the atmosphere around here because I know we've got the right players. Well, wait a minute. We don't have the right players because we keep firing the GM. Okay, we don't have the right players, but I know we've got the right head coach that can get the most out of our players. Oh, we don't have that because we're 1-5, so let's fire the head coach again. The thing about firings is that you got to choose. You can't be so quick to fire coaches and GMs because really what that shows is you've gotten everything wrong. So you got to make your bed with one of them. So my complaint about the Titans is not that they fired Brian Callahan. Don't care. I mean, I'm sorry for him, but he's going to get paid plenty. It's like being sorry for Franklin of Penn State. Not. But the problem, if you're a Titans fan, is that you have to look at your ownership group and say, just choose one. Is it the players or the coaching? Because what your actions are saying is that it's both, and that makes me absence of hope. That makes me not believe that we can ever be better. So I really wish that you would just stick with one. And of course, Amy Adams came out and said, no, like, we're good. Like, now we're good. Finally, this is it. And I would say you don't lose credibility when you've done all this in the last 3 years because every new coach could be the one. We'll see who replaces Brian Callahan. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it is a So You Want to Talk to Samson. We have a bunch of interesting questions about current events, all of which we're going to get to after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal on this Wednesday, October 15th. It is David Samson coming at you 6 years deep into our journey. Wednesday's second hour means that Coca gets to play some amazingly cool music.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. That is from the movie Half Baked. By the way, Coca, I'm schwitzing here. I don't know if you can see it on camera on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel. Thank you for tuning in, subscribing, downloading DraftKings. We are live on DraftKings coming up here in a few minutes. So thank you. But yes, I have total flop sweat right now. I'm totally Albert Brooksing it, and I don't know why. Oy, oy, oy. Let's start that again. Coca, it is welcome back to the second hour. It is a So You Want to Talk to Samson Wednesday. That's when you can call me on the phone. Dial 631-377-4869. Leave a voicemail because you may make the show. And So You Want to Talk to Samson is from the movie Half Baked. For all the new listeners out there, there's a great movie called Half Baked. Get baked, or not, but get baked. Watch the movie, laugh, and realize there's a character out there. People want to talk to them. Him. I'm me. Let's start. We have so much to get to.
Good day. I don't have a sports question. I have a question about the show, specifically this segment, So You Want to Talk to Samson, and the voicemails. Do you listen to these voicemails ahead of time, or does Coca just throw these at you saying, let's see how David answers this? Half of the time your answers are crisp and defined, like you rehearsed it. Half the time you just seem like you're winging it off the top of your head. I love the show, and I'm just curious.
That's my favorite question we've ever gotten. Because you, my friend, you get the show. How great is it that you don't know whether I listen to the voicemails in advance, and sometimes you think I do, and sometimes you think I don't? What if I told you, and I'm just going to tell you the truth because that's what I do on this show, with almost zero exceptions, much to the chagrin and disappointment of people in my life, you know more about me, and I disclose more than most people. But yes, I listen to the voicemails. I send Coca. So what happens is you call, and then it's on Zoom. It's like it's a Zoom phone number, which is weird. I didn't know those existed. So I log on to a special Zoom account, which is not my regular Zoom account. And there's all these voicemails, just hundreds and hundreds of voicemails. And I click on them because there's a way that you can hit play. So I put my earpiece in. I sit here on a Tuesday, and I just sit in front of Zoom, and I listen to voicemails. And if it's a question that interests me, between 20 and 40 seconds, I will mark it with a like a red dot, which indicates to Coca when he is putting the show together in the order of what he wants to do for the So You Want to Talk to Samson segment and for the entire show. He'll put the order together of things that we've discussed that we want to talk about. So I will highlight a bunch of different voicemails that interest me, and then Coca will decide. And I don't know about it until I look at the rundown, which is what we're going to do during a particular show. I'm really getting into the weeds here, inside baseball, as our CEO Bimmel would like to say, that we go inside where you're not interested, but I think you are interested in this because you asked the damn question. So Coca will send back to me in a living document the order of which we're going to do So You Want to Talk to Samson's, and then I'll look at it, and there's some questions that I will really focus on, and some questions that I'll be like, you know what, whatever's in my head, because we don't have a prompter, we don't have a script, we don't have writers. We've got Coca, Jack, and David. That's our group. That's what we got. I mean, of course, we love you, Alex and Patrick and Ken and Byram and all the other great people who are helpful to us. But I'm talking about like paying attention to what's going on for those 100 minutes. So the answer is that you're right. Sometimes my answers are crisp. Sometimes Coca even likes my answers. Other times they're winging it and Coca gets angry. He's like, David, you've got to prepare better for the question about whether you prepare. Next. This comes from not a voicemail. There's other ways to reach me, just so you know. I like the voicemails because I like when people hear their own voice. But there is, we've got X David P. Samson. The DMs are open. You can ask me questions and that may make the show. We have our own website, davidsamsonpodcast.com. Go to that website. Please buy merchandise, wear it. Send me pictures of you with your merchandise because it makes me feel good. It really does. Not that we're not getting rich off this merchandise, I assure you. Like the profit it doesn't even cover the cost, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't. What matters to me is that I love when people have nothing personal stuff on. It just feels good. I mean, what could be more ego satiating than someone walking down the street wearing your name and the show and the logo that was developed? So you can reach me on davidsamsonpodcast.com and ask any question you want, like this one. This came on the website. I can't figure out who asked this, and you'll know why in a minute. When a player like Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso opt out of their contracts, do the teams they were on get the first meetings or bids? Is it different for non-Boras players? Coke, I can totally understand why you wanted that one in, because I would have also. Alex Bregman, Boston Red Sox. Do you remember on June 26th when we did a show? Or was it, I don't remember what day it was, but I think it was back in June, Coke. Is that when it was? Where we were talking about Alex Bregman, and I said to you that, remember he signed that deal with Boston where he had the right to opt out after a season? And I told you that he would opt out after a season? And that Alex Bregman would then re-sign with the Red Sox? The old opt-out, re-sign, I've got all the leverage, which is why we can't give players opt-outs like this. Alex Bregman wouldn't opt out if he didn't have opportunities elsewhere. Alex Bregman would have opportunities elsewhere to get more guaranteed money than he has left on his little pillow deal. Therefore, he'll opt out, and the Red Sox want to bring him back, need to bring him back, so they get totally screwed. Alex Bregman on June 26th, we had to wait to see. I think we told you that Bregman was going to opt out and then re-sign with the Red Sox. I think we made it our official wait to see, which you can find on davidsamsonpodcast.com. We have a document that has all of our wait to sees, all of our crappy picks of the day. Although they're not always crappy. I'm just cold right now. I'm so super cold. You're asking the question, do the Red Sox have the advantage? Will they get a first meeting, first bid? So the way it works is for a player when they have an opt-out is their agent calls 29 teams. They also understand exactly what their current team is willing to do because you have the conversation with your GM. If you think that Bregman and Craig Breslow have not discussed the opt-out, Alex's agent, you're just wrong. They have totally discussed it, but the way it works is the leverage goes to the player, which is why opt-outs are so bad, because the agent says to the team, hey, just so you know, we've got blank. The problem is that Scott Boras lies all the time with what he has. He doesn't have it at all, and we know it. So if he tries, like with Pete Alonso, when he tries to let you know that Pete Alonso wants a 7-year deal, give me a break. Pete Alonso's not getting a 7-year deal. Pete Alonso can go to the Mets right now and say, hey, Stevie, we got 7. Stevie will say, see you later, Pete. Thanks for everything. Have fun. And then Boras is like, oh, crikeys. We don't have 7. We don't have 6. We don't have 5. Do I hear a 4? Don't worry. Hang out, Pete. I'm going to get you the 4. Don't you worry. Oh, all right. We'll take a 1 year. We'll give you an opt-out again. We'll do it all again. When do you think that Scott Boras's clients realize that Scott Boras actually doesn't perform for the players the way that he wants you to think he does? I'm just curious, when will that happen? When will that be the case? I keep thinking it will be. One of these days. When Pete Alonso doesn't get 7 years, do you think that Scott Boras will be like, oh, 7 years? No, the best fit from this player was right back with the Mets, right back with a 3-year, $75 million deal. That was perfect. We want to finish what we started and bring a world championship to the New York area with the only team that he's ever played on. The love that he's got for the Big Apple, it's palpable. It puts tears rolling down his stream like it's love affair with Warren Beatty and Annette Bening. I'll meet you at the Empire State Building type of stuff. Give me a small break. No, you don't get first meetings, first bids when you're the team. I shouldn't say it that way. I want to be nicer. You asked a question. You took the time to get on our website. You may have even bought a shirt. So here's the answer. When a player like Alex Bregman or Pete Alonso opt out of their deals, they are giving opportunities to all 30 teams. But of course, they say to their current team that that's where they want to be. They say that they have no interest in leaving. They say that they want to work together with the front office to come to a deal that's fair, that's equitable. And you say to yourself, wait a minute, we did that already. But you demanded this opt-out that you're now using as a sword. How dare you? I wouldn't say that to a player. I'd say that to myself. How dare me? How dare me give an opt-out to a player and then be upset when it's used against me? Who am I kidding? What's going to happen with Bregman is going to be quick, I do believe. The Red Sox are not going to want to screw around. I would expect him to opt out as soon as he can after the World Series, and then to sign as quickly as possible with the Red Sox. Because you're going to sign him. You don't have leverage. Just let it be. Pete Alonso, different story. I don't think Steve Cohen's in any rush to sign Pete Alonso, Coca. Why should he be? I think Pete Alonso sits. When did Pete Alonso sign with the Mets last year? Is there a chance there was an F on the calendar? I really want to say there was, Coca. You're going to say there may have been a J for January, but I think there was an F for February. Although that's so close to spring training, and you've got the World Baseball Classic, so you really want to get deals done earlier than F. I don't know. We'll find. February 5th. We had it right. There was an F. Hey, you're a Mets fan, Coca. You want Pete Alonso back? Like, is that critical that Pete Alonso's back on a big-time deal? I want to spend 2 to 3 minutes on one other thing that'll drive you crazy, Coca, but I have to do it. All the players that I've dealt with who have opt-outs or who have leverage, when their agent is not Scott Boras and they've got a Mensch for an agent, when they've got a Joel Wolfe as an example for an agent, you know that you're able to have a conversation about the opt-out, a conversation about the average annual value, a conversation about years, about comp. You're able to sit down and actually talk like human beings. When you're dealing with Boras players, all you do is get yelled at and spoken down to about why you've so badly underpaid his player and how his player is the only player you need to win a title. Can you imagine Scott Boras saying to Steve Cohen this offseason, all you need is Pete Alonso and you got yourself a title? What I never understood about that is they had Pete Alonso. Forget winning a title, although they did make it to the ALCS one year, but forget winning a title, they didn't even make the playoffs last year. Do you know what else I love that Scott Boras does? This is a classic Boras move. I know that you need this player who's opting out. Let's negotiate right now. But, Stevie, my man, my boychick, you know very well that you also need pitching. Let me tell you about the pitchers I have in my stable. These are the difference makers. You would think that you could build a team of Scott Boras clients and win the World Series every single year. You'd really assume that by the way he talks. And I'm imagining right now, Coca, Steve Cohen getting the call because it sure as heck fire is not going to be David Stearns. Steve Cohen gets the call from Scotty Boy. Steve, tough year, tough year. I gave you some time. I gave you some space, but you got to move on. It's now time to focus on 26. And the best thing for you to do is to BPB. Bring Pete back. Now we got to talk about years. We got to talk about years. I believe that it is only fair that you reward Pete Alonso because last year you got a break. We gave you a gift, Scott Boras would say to Stevie Cohn. You got a gift in Pete Alonso last year. The first half that he had, it was to die for. And Steve Cohn, you got to have the cojones to say on the other side of the line, once you're done ignoring the entire call or a meeting with Boras, you got to have the ability to say, Scott, we're not incrementally better bringing Pete Alonso back. He was back, and look what happened to us. So we think we're going to reallocate the money. Do you have any other players that we could overpay that you can think of? Hold on a second. Boras would respond, I've had agents do this. It always makes me laugh. You don't want this player? Well, I got another one for you. No, you're really going to want this player. I swear to God. Oh, you don't? Well, let me tell you about this first baseman we have. Of course agents do that. Have you ever thought about the conflict that's inherent in an agent's job when the team has one opening at first base and you represent two first basemen? And you have to say, oh, don't worry, I let the team lead the way. I let the team say who they want and then I'll engage. That's not exactly how it happens, ladies and gentlemen. Scott Boras will call you up and say, oh, I'm telling you, it's this one you want. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. How about a voicemail?
Hi, Comcast Xfinity here. Your 50% discount on monthly bill will be canceled in a few hours if not confirmed. This is extremely time sensitive. Please call back on the number showing on your caller ID right away to save your...
Coca, is that a voicemail? Do you want me to, could you come on camera, please? Right now. I don't care what you're wearing. I really don't care what you're wearing, but you better tell me what just happened live, because was that your cell phone? Are you calling your cable company right now in the middle of our show? Did that literally just happen? You're not even going to come on camera, are you? Are you? There you are. What just happened, Coca?
Just having some fun. Just having some fun.
What does that mean? Who was that?
We were just having some
He's not even answering. This is live, folks. This is actually happening. So you're really not going to tell us? I am in the dark the way you are, folks. All right. Do you have a voice? This is your chance. 321-4869. Do you want to just cut that so the fans won't hear that? The audience won't hear that? What do you want to do? Was that like
Hi,
literally
David.
Comcast?
It's Yisachar. I just wanted to wish a refuah shlema for your daughter, and I wanted to ask, in recent months after Judge had his injury, the cameras cut out before he made plays in the outfield. I wanted to know who makes that decision and how can the management decide and tell the cameras what they're doing and how that's done behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Well, first of all, thank you, Coca. That was a voicemail. Second of all, I appreciate what that was in the beginning was a blessing that you do for when there is a sick child. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay, on to that question. This is going to be a good one because this is totally rehearsed, not off the cuff. Do you know when you own your network, like the Yankees and Yes Network, or the Red Sox and Nesson, or the Cubs and Marquee Sports, and okay, you got that, the Orioles and Masson, you with me? Just owning your network. Do you know that the employees for the network, they don't report directly to you as the owner of the team, but they sort of do? And that as a team, you have the right to control the content, even when you don't own 100% of your network? You do realize that no matter how much of the network you give to private equity or you give to other investors or you split with the cable company, one of the contractual arrangements is that that network will not, under any circumstance, do something that will show your team in a bad light. You know that teams have the say over who the broadcasters are, whether they say they do or not. When Tommy Hutton was let go of Fox Sports Florida, he was a Marlins broadcaster, a great broadcaster. Do you know what happened with that is that if a broadcaster wants more money than the network is willing to give, the network will say to the team, hey, you have the right to pay the difference. You have the right to have this broadcaster if you want. You have the right to not pay. You have the right to have no say or all the say. There is constant communication between the team and the broadcaster. Do you know that I have the ability during a game to go into the truck, the broadcast truck, to go into the booth and to say, hey, don't talk about that. Do talk about that. That happens every day, every team. There is a PR person for every team who is solely responsible to listen to the feed and then respond if something happens that we don't want to happen. Now let me get to something even more specific. Camera angles are done by a director. There's a director of a game, and the director is saying, go camera 2, go camera 3. There's different cameras. They're in the truck. They're looking at different things. And every time you watch a game, the reason why the broadcasters thank the director at the end, they thank their stats guy at the end, they thank members of the crew, etc., is because what you are seeing at home is what the director wants you to see. But the director and everyone who works for a network, they answer to the teams. And if we say, no matter what, do not show the owner during the game, the owner will not be shown during the game. Do not show Aaron Judge throwing a ball up close. Do not show Jazz after he strikes out. There is a list of things, and I don't know why I'm talking about the Yankees because you didn't ask specifically about, oh, you did ask about Aaron Judge. There's a list of things we have, and the director has it, the broadcasters have it, the PR department that we have, the broadcasting department we have. They all know the rules. And if you break the rules, you're going to lose your job. And the reason why we're specific about certain things, so for example, if we have a pitcher who's not available that particular game, we would say to the broadcasters, do not mention during the game that the closer is not available, because the other team is watching our feed looking for stuff. Every game we had someone watching the other team's feed also, obviously. So we would tell the broadcasters, talk about this, don't talk about that. Now, that doesn't mean the broadcasters are all homers, except they are because they're supposed to be. Do you know the broadcasters and the feed is on in the clubhouse and players are listening to the feed? And do you know the broadcasters then go on the team plane all year long? There's a reason why home team broadcasters are not going to be totally truthful about the players on the team, because it would cause a level of stress and a level of discomfort within the traveling party that we don't want to have happen. The reason why we would not want Aaron Judge, as an example, to ever be shown throwing is we know that he's injured and we know that he can't throw, but we don't want the other teams to know for certain, even though they do, which is always funny. Because, do you know, side note, Coca, before every game, we also get a list of the opposing team's pitching staff and who's available in our mind and who's not available and how many pitches their bullpen has thrown, so we can prepare and game plan for what we assume their pitching is going to be. Every team is doing that in baseball. We know Aaron Judge's arm is hurt. The game plan before the game is on a fly ball that is mid to deep to right field. You're on second base. Make him make the throw. Tag up. When you're on first base, there's a quadrant of right field that we will let the players know if you're on first base, you're tagging up from first, make him make the throw. And it's not an anti-Judge thing. It's what you know about the outfielders who are playing against you. It's why you prepare for a game. Always, every day. The grind of that is real. I forgot what the question was, Coca. It was something about Judge and whether or not the camera angle and etc. Why is there a big talking point about the Brewers game being off center? I don't know. Was that part of this voicemail? I didn't even hear that as a part of the voicemail, but I will answer that the true center field camera when you're building a stadium, it's not actually true center field. And so when we're looking in as a viewer, when you're watching a feed and you think you can tell what's a ball and what's a strike and what's inside, what's outside, the reason why they put the box up on the broadcast is it really is hard to see it because it's not a dead center field camera. Why would you think, Coca? Feel free to answer that or not. Why would you think you can't have a dead center field camera? Just out of curiosity, do you know the answer? The answer is you'd be looking at the back of the head of the pitcher. Think about that for a second. All right, many of you have asked about this next topic. I was going to make an amalgam of a question, but there were so many So You Want to Talk to Samson written questions, voicemails on this, that I couldn't choose one of them. This is all about what happened in Cleveland. And there's so much happening in Cleveland. So attention, all Clevelanders. The next few minutes is about you. But if you're not from Cleveland, you're going to be interested because who's not interested in the NBA season, which starts next Tuesday, 1 week from yesterday? It's unbelievable that the Thunder will start as reigning NBA champions. It's unbelievable how deep the West is. You forget quickly that Jason Tatum is out for the year, that Halliburton's out for the year, that Lillard's out for the year. It's a total requiem of a nightmare for Achilles tendons and teams of the East or in conference. You forget the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have the #1 payroll in all of basketball. If I'd given you 5 guesses to who's got the top payroll in the NBA, would you have said the Cavaliers? Would you have known that the Cleveland Cavaliers have a payroll that's $23 million more than the second highest team? Did you remember that the Cavaliers signed Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley to those insane deals, like Donovan Mitchell making $50 million plus and Mobley getting like $270 million over 5 years? Are you kidding me? Do you remember those deals? Well, they all kick in now. Do you realize that the Cavaliers will be paying $163 million in penalties next year? I can't. Is that even possible? They are paying over $110 million more than any other team between payroll and taxes. The salary cap in the NBA, it's not really a salary cap. You can go over it all you want. You can go into the second apron, which only the Cavaliers have done, which just means you're going to a level of payroll that's so high that you're being taxed in a way that is unforgiving, and so no one will stay in the second apron. The Cavaliers stay at the top of the payroll pyramid is 1 year. This year. Now, it is true they're favored to win the East, and that's exciting. It is true that they're not favored to win the NBA title because the teams in the West are stronger, the Thunder, the Nuggets. It is unlikely that the Cavaliers will win the title this year, even though they want to. What's amazing is that they put themselves in this position where they will have to make an adjustment in a way that the Celtics did and used the Jason Jason Tatum injury as the impetus for those changes, for letting Horford go, for trading Porzingis, for the changes that they made, because the Celtics tax bill this year was going to be so even higher than the Cavaliers, but they traded away players and saying, hey, it's a mini reset. Tatum's out for the year. We are so tempted all the time, Coca, to go into debt. We're so tempted to go for it because we want to win so badly. But then all of a sudden, next year comes so damn quickly. Does it not seem like yesterday that SGA was winning a title? To me, it seems like yesterday. It also seems like 20 years ago. It's weird how that happens. When you're the Cavaliers and you've put all your money in this year's basket, and you're trying to convince your fan base that no, this is sustainable, when we know for a fact it's not sustainable, that is a level of pressure that teams have. I have not seen any interviews with Donovan Mitchell, with Evan Mobley, with anyone in Cleveland, but the pressure they have, because players know about the second apron. They know about the luxury tax penalty, about the salary cap penalty. They're aware of everything. They don't exactly go through the season and say, oh, I didn't realize we had the highest salary. We had the highest payroll. They know everything. By the way, they also know what all their teammates get paid. So I can't wait to see this season sort of unveil itself, and we'll have way more on the NBA season. But the Cavaliers, as a favorite in the East, they ought to be with that payroll. Cleveland was in the news not just because of that, which was talked about yesterday, but the Cleveland Browns are back in the news, and I want to sit up straight. I want to look right in the camera. This is for you, Jimmy Haslam. I want to congratulate you on negotiating that amazing deal to allow yourself to build a stadium in Brook Park. I want to congratulate you on only giving $100 million to the city of Cleveland in order for them to drop all their litigation, including litigation against the Ohio Department of Transportation, including the Modell Law litigation against you, which says you can't move out of Cleveland without offering to sell the team to those in Cleveland. I want to congratulate you for making part of the $100 million to flatten the site where your current stadium is. I love that. I want to tell you how great it is that you agreed to give $2 million a year for the next 10 years to community benefits projects. I love that. I want to tell you how unbelievable it is that you negotiated to give $25 million upfront to the city of Cleveland by the end of this year. What am I talking about, folks? I'm talking about a deal that was announced 2 days ago where Jimmy Haslam is giving $100 million to the city of Cleveland, and all of a sudden the city of Cleveland said, wait a minute, for $100 million paid off in various ways over various years, I'm okay with the Browns leaving. Their entire position up until 2 days ago, publicly, very important word, publicly, is that they wanted the Browns to stay in Cleveland. Their entire position is everything they were doing was not to save face for Clevelanders, because the Browns were never moving out of Cleveland. They weren't doing a Modell. They were moving to the suburbs. But the city of Cleveland was suing everyone in sight. Why? Because they were negotiating with Jimmy Haslam and his wife. They were trying to get money to help balance their budget, to help figure out how to redevelop the area around the stadium that's currently in downtown Cleveland. This was all a business deal from the start. Do you remember when we talked about lawsuits, both in the NFL and anywhere? Lawsuits that settle because they're actually about money and not about the underlying issue, and then lawsuits that don't settle. John Gruden, Brian Flores won't settle. They want the NFL to be embarrassed. They want the NFL to be deposed. They want the NFL to be called out in public. Do you remember we talked about that? What was the city of Cleveland's goal? To embarrass Jimmy Haslam? They don't care. To keep the Browns in Cleveland? They don't care. What they wanted was money. And when money is what you want, settlements are not far behind. All that was left was to negotiate the payment terms. All that was left was to figure out, when will Jimmy Haslam pay this money? What will it be used for? While people within the city of Cleveland and the commissioners, county, city were all figuring out how to spend the new amount of money they were getting as they waved goodbye to the Cavaliers, 4869, as they waved goodbye to the Browns and have them move to the suburbs. This was one of the great examples proving what we talk about on this show about business. It's not the end of the show, so I'm not going to say it's just business because we have about 13 minutes left. But people are shocked by this Browns announcement. $100 million? How can that be? Now, maybe you'll realize that what's going on in Brook Park is not just a 9-game-a-year stadium. All of these teams are developing neighborhoods. They're developing, it's Atlanta. It's Wrigley. It's Boston. They're developing, it's what Tampa wanted to do in St. Petersburg. It's about making money. It's what Inter Miami's doing in Miami. All of this ancillary development, the word ancillary would make it seem like it's not really of primary importance, but the truth of the matter is the ancillary development is everything, and it's the stadium that's the ancillary development. You can't spend $2 billion on a football stadium and make that work. It doesn't financially work. No matter what team you are, no matter how good you are, no matter how much you charge for your tickets, the math isn't there. So how do you make a real estate deal for a stadium? You have to have the real estate. You have to be able to put in housing, hotel, retail. You have to find the other streams of revenue that are yours. Jimmy Haslam paying $100 million over the course of 10 years, basically, in order to be able to develop Brook Park and have the city of Cleveland and the nuisance that they are go away right now, that's like priceless. So when you're negotiating with an owner, to all of the people who are public officials listening to this show, when you're negotiating with owners, just know that you have way more leverage than you think you do, because the owners are going to act all high and mighty, and they're going to throw a ton of lawyers, a ton of money, a ton of consultants. They're going to outspend you, and they're going to think that they outsmart you because you're in the public sector and they're in the private sector, and therefore, definitionally, they're smarter. But the fact of the matter is, you have way more leverage than you think. All you have to be willing to do is walk away. Once the city of Cleveland realized that, listen, we are willing to let the Browns walk away, boom. Now you get to ask for the money. And now you get an owner to give you this money. I couldn't be happier for the city of Cleveland, because you're better off with the $100 million, no matter how it's paid, from Haslam than you are having a new stadium in downtown. You're going to redevelop downtown. You don't need the stadium as an anchor tenant. It just doesn't work that way when it's a football stadium. And I couldn't be happier for Haslam, because I know what it is to have distractions of lawsuits when you're trying to build a stadium. I know exactly what it is when you're fighting with the public entity and they're not even involved in the deal. The city of Cleveland is not relevant to the Brook Park deal, but they were like this thorn in the side of Haslam. And instead of trying to lick it off the way animals try to get rid of SWAT flies that are attacking their hide, and they can't reach it, and it totally stinks, Haslam found a way. $100 million. What are people in Cleveland saying? Are you saying that this is good? Are you saying it's bad? Let me give you a hint. It's really good for everybody. And just leave it at that. Okay. What are you showing me, Coca? I want to show you that this is Coca writing something down. I want to show you the picture of the Brewers playoff game versus regular season. People are suggesting that MLB can get more ads, so they've moved the camera position. All right, show me the picture. Show me the picture. All right, we're looking at a picture right now of a camera angle, and I can't tell which is what and what is where, but I'm assuming the one on the left is the playoffs, or is the one on the right playoffs? I don't know. What are you showing me here, Coca? I still can't. Which is playoffs, Coca? The one with Snell. All right, I got to put my glasses on. If you're listening to this, Coca's trying to prove that I got my camera angle thing wrong. So I'm going to get really close to the camera. Snell's on the left. And yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, that looks totally different, Coca. My God, there must be a change. Are you kidding me? It's completely the same. What is wrong with you? Did we just interrupt the show for that? Because you think it's like 5 inches to the right? Can we do another question, please?
No, I'm on the show now. No, I will not allow you to get away with trying to tell people that this is the same. They're both lefties. One camera is directly behind the lefty pitcher on the right side, and we can see the back of Snell, and we're like 4 feet to the right of him on the left side. How are you trying to say that that is the same? You can't even see the righty batter's box.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you show a lefty up? You're comparing a righty to a lefty.
It's the lefty pitcher.
No, but
even on the right, yeah, but even on the right side, a lefty batter would still be in frame. You can see both batters' boxes on the right side. You can only see one batter's box on the left side because the camera is angled completely differently.
I'm seeing half of the other batter's box, Coca. You're talking about 6 inches. It's not even enough to talk about. Okay. But I'm happy to keep talking about it if you're angry.
No,
are you still angry about the voicemail?
No, you're right.
It's fine.
No, you're right. You're right. It is the same picture.
Wait,
identical.
Do you not see half the batter's box for the righty? I can't believe we're having this argument in the middle of a show.
I mean,
but I'm fine with
it. Listen. You can see.
Go ahead, Coca.
You can see right behind the pitcher on the right-hand side. You can see you are looking at a straight-on view of the catcher and the umpire and the batter's box. On the left-hand side, you are not seeing any of that.
I assume you're not familiar at all with gaslighting.
Okay. I am out of here.
See you later, Coca. All right, next, I want to talk about something. I got a bunch of people asking me about what happened with the hostage release and why I didn't talk about that on any show. Well, I don't know that I've done a show since the hostages were released. I may have done one show, but I wanted to talk about it just briefly to tell you on October 7th, and it's been multiple years, you've got a situation where there is such a difference in how people view the war in Gaza, and it reminds me of many different economic issues or political issues that exist when there are two sides, in theory, to a story, and that people are hugely emotional about either side. And that can be about Social Security, something as important as Medicare, healthcare. It can be about war. It can be about genocide. It can be about religion. It can be about freedom. All of that, I am willing to acknowledge exists. And what I've always wanted on Nothing Personal is for you to just be informed about issues and decide for yourself where you stand. I don't fully understand how anyone would be able to have the view that hostages are the way to go. No matter what your view is about the Middle East, about Palestine, Palestinians, Israel, Israelis, whether you're an anti-Semite or not, whatever you are, whether you're Jewish and you're still land for peace, peace for land, I'm in for whatever you want to be. I am. Live and let live. But I just have a question. Under what scenario is it okay to take innocent people as hostages? When is that ever okay? It doesn't mean that I am trauma comparing. because I've been going through a lot of that recently, where you're thinking to yourself, what you're going through is different than what they're going through, but to them, what they're going through is just as horrific as what you're going through, and what you're going through seems to be the most horrific, but maybe it's not, maybe it is. Why compare? We all feel how we feel. Why can't you, in one brain, say, I don't agree with what Israel did in response, but I also don't agree with taking innocent people as hostages? Why can't that be the position that many people take? I watched Donald Trump take credit for the hostage release, and I've spoken to many people who are willing to look past many of the things the president does locally because of what the president does with Israel and with his hostages, with the war, with protecting the state of Israel, etc. Many, many people I know on both sides of the issue, because I know many people and we talk about these things. I do have a comment on the hostage release, which is, under no scenario can we ever make a trade where you release people who break laws, who are prisoners because of crimes they've committed, and they get traded for innocent people who have been taken hostage. Why? Why do I still think about the release of Brittany Griner and how the Lord of War was given to Russia in return? Why do I think about this? Because there's a bunch of screwed up people who I wish were permanently off the earth, who look at this situation and say, this works. When we want to accomplish something, all we have to do is find a couple of innocent people. Maybe it's one, maybe it's two, maybe it's 200. Depends on how serious the issue is. All we have to do is find a couple, take them hostage, and wait. Even Israel's going to give in because of economic pressure, because of domestic policy, because of myriad issues going on, both in the Middle East and in North America. And it will result in a perfect trade. Now, does the perfect trade come after war that has just destroyed an area and people's lives and people on both sides of the aisle? Yes. Therefore, what are we doing? Why? To what end? And I'm saying that to everybody, because on one end, I want to make it very clear to everyone in every country on every continent that if you think that genocide is right, you're wrong. If you think that you can murder innocent people and you think you're right, you're wrong. If you think that it's okay, that is how you accomplish what your foreign or domestic policy goals are, we've got a real problem with the path to satisfying the goals that you've promised your constituents. And how do we address it? I'm not just presenting the problem, I'm solving the problem. The problem that I'm solving is we are not going to reward bad behavior. We do it with children. We don't reward bad behavior. With students, with people at work, we never reward bad behavior because it just produces more bad behavior. So if you reward it at any point in the process, if you are inconsistent in any way with the application of a set of rules or principles, it provides the weak point. It provides the opening for people to take advantage, and they will. It is so critical to be that level of consistent, because the minute you're not, you're done, you're finished. And it goes for something as small as nighttime for a child to something as big as the death of innocent people. It's the same exact concept. What have we learned? Again, we've learned nothing. What have we accomplished? You know I'm right. What have we accomplished? Nothing. And I'm tired of accomplishing nothing. It's crushing me, actually. We'll do a show again tomorrow. It's just business except for coca. This is nothing personal.